Hey everybody, welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid and another installment of October Nights 31 Tales for the Halloween season. Available on Amazon in print or Kindle, but if you can't afford the books, keep coming back every night of October. We're going to have a reading. Tonight we are on October the 14th, and it's a story called There Are Angels Among Us, or It Might Just Be Ghosts. Now, quick backstory, and remember to get my 6. Watch for movement behind me. Listen for strange sounds. I was up here this afternoon after lunch doing a bit of reading. I'm still knocking off Ray Bradbury's The October Country Stories. And by the way, I made a video a while back after a young electrician had come out and rewired our entire electrical box out there. I was so impressed with this young man who was going to a trade school rather than college. He's doing a 4-year program, costs $1,000 a year in a K-Tech, and he's actually getting a job in which he will be highly employable. He's already employed while he's doing it, making more money. He's 19. He's making more money than many people twice his age or more that have advanced college degrees, because those jobs just simply don't exist anymore. People are always going to have electricity. There'll always be a need for what this young man's doing. But when I told that story, I was talking about how it's just, in my opinion, how so many college degrees are now obsolete. And I do have a college degree. I went to college. I graduated. I'm not knocking education. But I forgot to mention Ray Bradbury, one of my favorite writers. He didn't go to college, and he was quoted as saying once, after graduating high school, I didn't have the money to go to college, so I went to the library 3 days a week. And then, of course, he became a highly successful writer, showing that, work ethic and development of craft and skill and just giving it everything you got means so much more than, maybe even a master's degree from an Ivy level college if you don't have, if you don't have the work ethic or the initiative or the ambition or just the stick-with-itness and the grit that it requires to be successful. So with that said, here's the backstory on tonight's story. This isn't another lecture about people who work and people who don't work. And remember, work will out-succeed talent and Ivy League education whenever talent and Ivy League education does not show up and work does. It's that simple. That's life. But the backstory on this story is that it's kind of 2 stories in one. And both of them, I know the first one is true because it's my story. And the second one, I have no reason to doubt the person that shared this story with us. Now, both of these stories have been told on this channel before, but most of you watching right now probably have not heard these stories because they were told about 2 years ago, before the whole Bigfoot Sasquatch stuff really was a big thing on this channel. I tried to delve into the Bigfoot Sasquatch stuff early on because of some of the experiences we were having around here, and I got blasted by some of our loyal, faithful watchers. So I kind of put it on the back burner. And then, October of 2018, 2 years ago, I started to go in the woods during the month of October leading up to Halloween and tell some ghost stories. Some I'd written, some I hadn't, some that I have since written and are now in this book. And of course I got blasted. I just finally developed tough skin and just started making the videos I wanted. And so I started laying the Bigfoot Sasquatch videos on thick. I started laying the ghost story videos on thick because that's what I want to do. And it was so wonderful to see that when you follow your heart and you do it smart and your head and your heart is in the right place at the same time, you just can't fail. For every one of those, people who were trying to control our content by saying, this is not why I subscribe to this channel. I want to see you plant green beans. It's a homesteading channel. For every one we lost, we gained 3. And it was just amazing. And I appreciate all of your support. So the point of that is that these were a couple of the stories that were told that were not liked to be heard by people who wanted to see how we harvested our corn. So you probably haven't heard them, a good many of you. Some of you had. Many of you just enjoy the channel. You enjoy me, you enjoy my family, and you respect us enough to give us the freedom to make whatever kind of videos we want. And if it's not the type you want to watch, you just don't watch it. You come back for the next one, and if you like that, you watch that. I know, right? I mean, pretty simple concept. I don't understand why so many people don't get it. All right. Here we go. And it's not that long, so I figured I'd blab for a bit before I got into it. There are angels among us, or it might just be ghosts. I'd finally gotten around to taking down the Halloween decorations, but only because I was putting up the ones for Christmas. Nope, this did not happen in October. It happened in mid-December. And I did not throw in that little snippet about taking down the Halloween decorations in order for this story to qualify to be part of this anthology. That part really is true. But this story doesn't need to have anything associated with Halloween or the month of October to qualify for a collection of short stories about ghosts and ghouls and all things spooky during the Halloween season, because even though these events took place in December, this is definitely a ghost story, and it is one that is entirely true. And fortunately, I still have enough daylight left to where I can hold. The print in this is kind of big. I'm able to hold this about 2 feet away from my face. I can still see it. That's nice. So I did bring my readers, though. Our day had been a typical day. We woke up early, got the kid off to school, and then my wife and I, did our daily chores on the homestead and checked our watches every 10 minutes to see how much longer it would be before the kid came home from school. And not because we wanted to know how much longer we had time to ourselves and how much longer we could get stuff done without the constant interruptions, all of which start with the words, "Hey Mom" or "Hey Dad," but because we missed him. We always miss him every minute that he's gone. We are one of those very strange families that love to spend every waking hour of our lives together, and it's not in any sort of codependent way. We simply and wholeheartedly love each other, and we understand how important we are to each other. We have never been able to understand so many families we see, the members of which go out of their way to find things to do by themselves or with friends in order to avoid being around their families. That is not us, never has been, and hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed for our son's upcoming teenage years, never will be. I finally got all the Halloween decorations down, and my wife and I got some of the Christmas decorations up. Our son finally made it home from school, and he helped us put up the rest of our Christmas decorations, and there was nothing wrong in our world. We had dinner, watched a movie, one of our favorite winter pastimes when we can't get outside and stay outside until dark due to the temperatures, and then we went to bed. We have a very old house. It was built in 1903. We have all amenities in our very old house, but it would be a stretch to say that they're modern. We have 2 bathrooms, one downstairs and one upstairs, in which I use the commode when I'm upstairs working out of my office, which is really a bedroom, and we've never used a shower in this upstairs bathroom. And of course, we have a downstairs bathroom that gets almost all our bathroom usage and absolutely all of our bathing traffic. We have electricity and running water, and we are more than comfortable in this old house built in 1903, but what we do not have per se is anything remotely close to modern heating and cooling systems. Yet, it's on the list for this coming spring. Slowly but surely, and as we can, we pay as we go, so we just don't owe. We do not have central air in our house, nor do we have the most modern heating and cooling system, ductless heating and cooling. Yet. It's coming the spring of 2020. Fingers crossed and knock on wood pile. Our first couple of summers in this house, we had no window unit air conditioners. We moved here from the Philippine Islands, where my wife had spent all 28 years of her life up until that time, and where my son, who was born there, had spent all 5 years of his until then. I'd been over there for nearly 6 years straight myself, so even though it gets hot as heck and humid as heck here in Central Virginia, where we live in the summers, we were still accustomed to the hotter than heck and more humid than heck 365 days of the year in the Philippines, a subtropical region sitting only 7 degrees above the Earth's equator, and where we never had air conditioning, like more than 90% of that country's population. So we just bought a couple of electric fans and never thought twice about it. In time, we began meeting people and making friends. American friends who'd never left America and who literally would not come visit us in the summer because they felt like they were dying in our house after having spent a lifetime being spoiled by central air and in recent times ductless. Heck, they looked like they were dying, and I actually felt sorry for them. We broke down during the 3rd summer in our house and bought window unit air conditioners because we wanted our friends to come back and visit during the hot months of the year, and we didn't want to see them die while they were here. As far as heating our house in the winter, we have 2 methods. We have baseboard electric heat, and we have an old-fashioned wood stove which sits out about a foot from the wall in the middle of our living room. What we do is we shut all the doors to the upstairs rooms during the winter, and we burn wood in the stove to generate 90% of our heat. The only time we use the baseboard heat is if we don't wake up during the night to put more... Yeah, I told you I was up here reading Ray... I'm sorry, I'll redo that whole paragraph. But the whole thing about telling you I was up here reading Ray Bradbury today is because I was reading it right here, and there's a game trail coming out of the woods here, and twice, I was reading for about half an hour, it sounded like something was coming right up behind me, and I assumed it was one of the deer in our free-range deer herds, and I turned around and nothing was there, and twice I heard something zip past me through the leaves and land down here below me like somebody or something threw something at me, and we just experienced that. Keep your eyes on this sucker right here and see if it moves, okay? That was the point of that. Okay. Okay, what we do in the winter, because we have baseboard in the old wood stove, we shut the bedroom doors upstairs, okay? The only time we turn on the baseboard heat is if we don't wake up during the night to put more wood on the fire and it burns out and the house is freezing. We'll turn the baseboard heaters on, jump under the blankets and wait about 10 minutes, and then get up and build a new fire and then immediately turn off the baseboard. Why are we so hesitant to use the baseboard heating system? As I said, it's expensive. We decided to find out how expensive. So our first winter here, when we ran out of firewood at the end of January, we decided we'd just use the baseboard heat for the entire month of February in order to see what the difference on the electric bill would actually be. It turned out it cost us nearly $500 more to heat our house for a month during winter using baseboard heat rather than using the wood stove. Let's just say that I have learned to keep 2 years worth of firewood available because $500 a month is a lot of money to me. I don't even like to buy firewood, though I have a couple of times just because I've found it so cheap during some of the summer months. I cut, split, and stack 90% of the wood we burn in the stove to keep our house warm in the winter, and I love every back-breaking, full-body workout, sweat like you're in a freaking sauna minute of it. I heard a knock, and I actually split and stacked an entire truckload of wood today. I didn't realize it was that much, but when I threw it in the truck to haul it up and stack it, it took up the whole truck bed, and I did it in about 90 minutes. Watch this guy. There's two of them up here. Keep your eyes on them. A couple of peekers, or peelers as some people call them. On the day I finally took down all the Halloween decorations and we began putting up the Christmas decorations, I'd stoked the fire up before going to bed. I knew it would burn for 3 or 4 hours before needing more wood. It's so strange. Spring, summer, and fall, I go to bed at bedtime and sleep until morning, barring the occasional awakening from my bat crap crazy cat, Cleopatra. But in winter, well, I've somehow trained myself to wake up every 3 hours to put wood on the fire, and I'm equally trained to fall right back to sleep after I've done so. But this night was different. Very different. Around midnight, I got up to put more wood on the fire. We'd gone to bed at 9 p.m. because it was a school night, so I was right on schedule. However, I didn't put the same amount of wood on the fire as I usually did, and I didn't set the damper and arrange the stove doors the same way I always did. I had not set the fire up to burn for another 3 hours. I'd set it up in such a way that I would need to get up in only 1 hour to put more wood on the fire because I felt something in my gut telling me to do this. I never heard voices. I had no visions. It was like the knowledge that I needed to do this popped into my head like a random thought or idea. This is the best way I know of describing it. And my gut told me to listen to this random thought or idea type of message because my heart told me that that was exactly what it was, a message. And I listened. An hour later, around 1 a.m., my eyes popped open and I was fully awake. It felt more like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I knew I needed to put wood on the fire, and I knew there was a certain reason why it had to be now. I went into the living room, and sure enough, the fire in the wood stove was nearly out. As I was putting more wood on the fire, building it back up, I heard what I would best describe as a popping sound, like those little white wads of gunpowder you can buy at carnivals that you throw on the ground to make that popping sound. The sound was coming from the kitchen. I went into the kitchen where our water heater is crammed between the electric range and, believe it or not, the washer and dryer. Yes, it's cramped in there, but none of these appliances even existed in 1903 when our house was built. And the folks who would live in it during all the decades before us just figured out how to cram all of those various appliances as they were invented in there and make it all fit. And we'd simply followed their lead after we'd bought the house. And sure enough, the popping sound was coming from the water heater. It was on fire. I immediately went into the bedroom and woke my wife. My son had fallen asleep with us while we'd been watching the aforementioned movie in bed, so we never moved him to his room upstairs, and I can't help but think this was part of tonight's divine intervention, or whatever it was that was going on as well, and I woke him up too. I didn't want them to panic, but I wanted them to be awake in the event I couldn't get the fire out. I told them the water heater was on fire, but that I could get it out, and that I wanted them to stay awake until I did in case we had to make a run for it. I went back into the kitchen, ever grateful that we'd been wise enough to keep a fire extinguisher beside a rack where we keep the microwave and store food. I grabbed the extinguisher, and with one small squirt, the fire was out. I went outside to the breaker box and shut off the breaker for the entire kitchen so that we wouldn't have to deal with an electrical fire later in the night. Then we all went back to sleep, and we slept soundly through the night. Watch right in here. I just think I saw some movement. The next day, we went to Lowe's and bought a new water heater. I was amazed with the customer service as they subcontracted a man to come out to the house to hook up the new one that very day. We did not even go a single day without hot water, which was great because it was December. I told this story on our YouTube channel, Homesteading Off the Grid, and I was amazed by the replies that came in by way of the comments section from so many people who had had similar experiences. One of them was so simply amazing that I went back up to our campground, right here, that evening, camera in hand, and told the story in order to share it with all of our followers. The story came in from one of our viewers named Tamila. Tamila let me know that when she goes through stressful periods in life, she'll often sleepwalk. Tamila further told me of a time when she went through an incident eerily similar to the one I just told of. Tamila, it seems, had been going through a divorce. As can be imagined, her stress levels were very high during this period of her life, and as a result, she began sleepwalking even more. One night, Tamila walked into her living room in her sleep, and she lit a cigarette and began smoking it. However, she returned to bed and lay back down to sleep before she finished smoking the cigarette. She was lying in bed, dead asleep, lit cigarette in hand. Tamila, while sleeping with the cigarette in her hand, beginning to burn a hole in the blanket, had an amazing dream. In her dream, there was a mean, grumpy, curmudgeonly old man standing at the foot of her bed, screaming for her to wake up. He kept screaming over and over, telling her that she had to get up. She would tell him to shut up because she was sleeping, and he just kept screaming. Finally, in her dream, she sat up and asked the man who he was, and he said that he was her Uncle John and that he was there to save her life. Wake up before the house burns down. At this point, Tamila woke up, throwing the blankets off of her and sitting up quickly as she did, and when she'd flung the blankets, she'd also flung the cigarette out of the bed. She could smell burning, and she got up and extinguished the cigarette and the bed clothing. The cigarette had burned through the two blankets she'd had on the bed as well as the sheet underneath, and it had begun to burn through the mattress, which certainly would have set the house on fire. A short time after Tamila had this experience, being visited by a man in a dream who no doubt saved her life and who claimed to be her uncle, she asked her father if she had an uncle named John. Her father thought for a moment and then told her that he had an uncle named John and that John would have been her great uncle. John had been Tamila's mother's brother. Wait a minute. So the dad, uncle named John, and the John would have... Yeah, he hadn't had, it was her mother's brother is what it was, okay? Why did I never know about your Uncle John? Tamila asked her father. He died in 1957, her father said, before you were even born. How'd he die? Tamila asked. He died in a house fire, her father told her. He fell asleep with a lit cigarette in his hand and it burned the whole house down. You see, even though this story was not set in October, it was very much appropriate for a collection of stories such as these, and I know that it gave you chills regardless. You're very welcome. The end. So guys, there you have it. Another reading from October Nights. Two true stories wrapped up into one for quite a ghostly tale. And speaking of wood stoves, it's almost dark and it's getting chilly now at night, and I've got to get down there and build a fire in mine, and hope that should things go wrong, I've got that same angel or those same angels or potentially ghost or whatever it was watching over me. So thanks for being here. We'll see you for more next time.